So this morning we're in Genesis chapter 32. Hopefully you're navigating your way through the Bible Bowl stuff. If you're having difficulty with that, see me, send me a text. I've helped a couple of you navigate through different sections of it. There's a couple of things I need to go and figure out if you're going through the Bible Bowl thing. One, I hear maybe Grayson's not getting all of the points he's getting for comments. I want to get back and figure that out. He's a little upset. Somebody's in front of him. I think Elizabeth James is actually the leader right now, if I'm not mistaken. So I know a couple of you are trying to figure what you missed. That's not a good way for me to figure that out, but I go back today. A couple of you have said, hey, I thought I did everything, but I've only got 700 points instead of 800 points, and I'll try to figure some of that out. But this morning, Genesis chapter 32, I titled this, Jostling at Jabbok. Jabbok is the name of the river where Jacob is at the moment, and he is really in probably one of the most terrifying moments of his life. He is on the way back to his home country. He's got all of his possessions. He has his family. The angels of God have already met him. He's sent messengers ahead to find out what lies ahead of him, what Esau has planned for them. And the only report he gets back is Esau's out there and he has 400 men. Now, the last time that Jacob had interaction with Esau was angry with him, and the text says he wanted to kill him. That's been decades. And now Jacob is going back. It's night. It's dark. He's in the darkness. And that brother is somewhere out there in the darkness. And Jacob is just really not sure what to expect. So he does something that's kind of strategic. Now, remember that Jacob, almost all of this time, he has navigated his way through deception and manipulation and strategy and coming up with plans and having some control. And if you read chapter 31, you know that in some of that there's God who's given him like a glimpse into what's happening, and he knows that God is somewhere involved in all of that, and he's had a couple of dreams, a couple of visions, but he's at the Jabbok River, and he's got Laban behind him, who he's already separated from. Esau is out there in front of him somewhere, and he's really at one of these moments in life that's just kind of a crossroads. So, in the middle of the night, he gets up. Now, he's divided his possessions already, and he has them in groups when they get ready to meet Esau. He's trying to make a buffer between himself and Esau. And in the middle of the night, it says that he gets up, and he sends his wives and his children across the river, and the scripture just simply says, and Jacob was left alone. So I want you to think about that for just a second. Jacob was left alone. That's a really small statement, but it's really one of the most important statements in the story. He can't hide behind his family really anymore. They're not around. He's had his wealth. He sent that across the river. He had movement where he was going toward the land of his mother's brother, and movement now back toward his homeland. He's had excuses. He's had manipulation. He's had all of this noise in life. And right now, Jacob is in a spot much like when he first started to Laban's territory, where he is alone. So there's silence and there's darkness. And I imagine in a lot of ways Jacob has a lot of fear. The reason that is so important is I want you to think just really briefly about the fact that usually God does some of his best work when we're alone. Moses in the wilderness, 40 years. God shapes Moses to get him ready for him to go bring the Israelites out of Egypt. Elijah, when he goes alone for 40 days and 40 nights. David, when he's a shepherd. And in all of those fields, God is shaping him and molding him into the king that God needs him to be. Even Jesus, while he's on the earth in flesh, remember he starts his ministry 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. The Apostle Paul, he sees the encounter with Jesus on the road to Damascus, and then he goes away for 3 years where God forms him and shapes him and molds him and makes him into the apostle that he needs him to be. So this isolation idea, so many times we think about that, and it's like we can almost see that like as abandonment sometimes. Have you ever had those moments with God where you kind of just, it's not that you really changed anything, you're not really doing anything different, but all of a sudden there seems to be these moments of abandonment, like God's maybe not as close as he used to be, and you're struggling with that, and you're trying to figure it out, and trying to understand why that happens. And all of those lonely seasons aren't abandonment. Many of those lonely seasons are actually transformation. God gets us alone, and he gets us in spaces where he can work on us, he can mold us, he can shape us, and he can really help us see what's really important. I think one of the biggest struggles of my culture, and I'll even get a little more specific than that, I think one of the biggest struggles that I personally have is I probably don't create enough alone time. God needs to remove distractions from us so he can speak clearly to us. And we live in a world where getting rid of distractions is almost impossible. We went to a baseball game last night. We went to see Cosmic Baseball. And it was. I'll say one thing for it, it's high energy, but I didn't see much baseball. They played baseball. There was just so many other things going on that I didn't really get to see the baseball. But you know what I noticed while people were at the game? What did I see? Phones. Oh, we're selfieing. We're taking videos, right? We're scrolling. Y'all ever get, I'm just asking, because I don't think I'm the only one. Y'all ever like doing something, and all of a sudden what you find is that in the middle of doing the something, you're scrolling on your phone looking at something else while you're doing the something you're supposed to be doing. Like how many of you don't have to show your hands, but you can if you want. How many of you pick up your phone during commercials on TV and scroll through something? Like when commercial cut, now, used to we would change channels, right? We don't do that anymore. We don't start changing channels. One of the reasons for that is because more of us are live streaming. I don't know if y'all have noticed this. It's harder to look through channels while you're live streaming. You know, so what we usually do is we pick up our phone. How many of you, this gets me in trouble at my house, how many of you pick up your phone while you're at the dinner table? Like start scrolling? This is one of my favorite stories, and it's been years ago, but we all went out to dinner one night. We were celebrating one of the boys' birthdays, and I'm looking at my phone, and Raz's looking at his phone, and Houston's looking at his phone, and we're just all sitting around at the table, and Diane sends this text message, this family message, and it says, "How was your day?" And I remember we were all like looking at our phone, and we all went, because it was obvious what she was trying to do. The point I'm making is it's really hard for us to find alone time. It's hard for us to create it because we are wired that we have to be doing something all of the time. How many of you, while you're driving, listen to music on your phone that now plays through your radio in your car, or you're listening to a podcast? How many of you, just even while you're driving, can have quiet, alone thinking time? I think it's a real struggle for us. But when it says Jacob was left alone, that's a really important part of the story. To be honest, I think we like the noise. I think we like the noise because the noise creates a distraction so that we don't have to really think about what we've become. If we can keep the noise, and the noise can make us think like we're busy, the noise can make us think like we're important, the noise makes us think like we're headed somewhere, the noise makes us think like we're doing something, then it keeps us from stopping and really reflecting on who we are. And when it says Jacob was left alone, some of God's greatest work is done when we are alone. And I don't think it's just like some kind of little thing in the story that the text says, and Jacob was left alone. I think it's really important. So this man shows up, and they wrestle. Now, how long did they wrestle? All night. Like all night. That is one long wrestling match. I mean, that's a lot of activity. How many of you had siblings where you wrestle? Like Clay and Grayson just went to the back. Like woo! Like all night. I mean, do you reach a point where you like get too tired to wrestle? Charlie Moffitt one time came over the house, and I was going to get in shape one year. I really had this planned out. I was going to start working out. And I had a plan. I didn't want to go to the gym. I want to do it at home, so I have plenty of time to do it. So I think, I don't know if Diane bought it for me or if it was a present or I went and bought it from us. I don't remember where I got it, but I got me a punching bag. So I got a punching bag, and I got it down in the garage, and that was going to be my workout plan. I was going to learn to work out on that punching bag. I mean, I seen that on TV, right? They knocking on that bag, getting in shape, sweating. I thought, man, that's going to be me. Charlie Moffitt, who used to box, I had Charlie come over and show me a boxing routine. He said, man, you just need to do this. So like the first 3 minutes, you just throw a jab, right? Next 3 minutes, you just hit the bag like this. You know, the next 3 minutes, you like doing combinations, and you working, you know, you bobbing and weaving, you get on the soles. He had me going. And, man, he was showing me how to do it. And I don't know if you've ever seen Charlie Moffitt with a speed bag. He said, then you get the speed bag and go, and, man, it was like, wow, Charlie, that's impressive. Like, I couldn't do that. I was like, but my speed bag rhythm is about like my dancing rhythm, and it's not very good. But so I got out there, and I get ready to do my first workout. Start throwing my punch. How long do you think it lasted? Charlie said 3 minutes. About 45 seconds. I was like, I can't even feel my arm. I'll run to the next one. I'll try this. I'll try this body blow. I'll do that. I can do that for 3 minutes. Whew, about 6 body blows. I was like, man, I can't do this. It's not going to work. Because I didn't have the stamina. I didn't have the ability to make it work. And so if I'm thinking Jacob wrestled this guy all through the night, he might like got 10 minutes out of me, but that was about all he was going to get. Jacob's in pretty good shape. Jacob's a pretty strong guy. Man, I don't know how you vision that. I kind of visioned it this way, which is why AI built that picture. I mean, I kind of see them wrestling, and they're at the Jabbok, right, which is like a little river or stream, and I see them rolling around in the water and splashing, you know, like cowboy movies, and water's going everywhere, and it's the middle of the night, and it's dark, and they wrestle all night. There's something interesting about that. When it got daybreak, and the guy that Jacob was wrestling with needed to leave, do you remember what he did? He just reached over, like touched him, and dislocated his hip. Just like that. Just like, oh, okay, I'm getting kind of tired here, and it's almost daybreak, I need to go, so here, just poop. You ever read that story and thought, well, why did he wait until daybreak? Like, why didn't he end the fight right at the very beginning? Why did he need to wrestle all night? I mean, did he forget that he could touch him and get his hip out of joint? Or was there a reason that happened? You realize that The person he is struggling with is described later in the story as God. Do you realize he could have stopped the fight at any moment he wanted to stop the fight? I mean, this is not like two equal people fighting. God could have ended it whenever he chose to end it, but he didn't choose to end it until it was almost daybreak. So they struggled and they fought because God allowed the struggle and the fight. If you read that story and you get out of that story, man, Jacob was really strong. You know, he's able to wrestle God and he's able to last all night. You're kind of missing the point. The point is not about understanding Jacob's strength. The point is about understanding Jacob's weakness. It's not ever about Jacob's strength. Jacob had used his strength most of his life, hadn't he? He fought for control. He fought to secure a blessing. He tried to control perception. He tried to fix circumstances. But in this moment, God chooses to do something different. And then there's this little phrase. He says, no longer will you be called Jacob, but Israel. Now, you got little footnotes in your Bible. And in the footnote of your Bible, it's probably got Israel means. It may say one who struggles with God. It may in that footnote say one who fights with God. Those are very possible. Usually when you have something like Israel, and you know the E-L on the end of that word, Israel, L is a shortened form of God. So it usually means God does something, like God sees or God does something. Usually probably what, instead of one who struggled with God, it probably means more like God fights. God fights. But it's okay that we do that with it, because what happened is God fights for Jacob, and God fights with Jacob. He learns something life-changing in that moment when his name is changed, and that is that the God that he is wrestling with is also the God who is wrestling for him. And man, when you start to think about that, the thought process actually gets pretty deep. Most times we think struggle is punishment. I think probably we need to look at that a little differently and think a lot of times struggle is not punishment. Struggle is actually transformation. And just like Jacob, God sometimes allows the struggle to keep going until we surrender. It's not about destruction, it's about dependence. Now, I don't know that every struggle that you face is a struggle from God trying to get you to submit or learn dependence on God, because that's a really tough lesson, isn't it? And I don't think all of them are that way. I think some of them might very well be, though. What I want in my life when I hit struggle is I want God to remove it instantly. Like I want it gone that moment. I don't want to struggle. I don't want to be uncomfortable. And I don't want to be in a position where I feel like I am not in control. Any of you like that? And so I want God to take it away immediately, but what God does many times is I'm begging God to take the struggle away, but God is intending for the struggle to reshape my soul. So they're kind of like physical and spiritual at the same time. There's this deeper inner thing going on with my spiritual health. So the struggle with God with Jacob, it's not about getting rid of the struggle. It's about being changed by God. And you get this really interesting thing. It's what's interesting in the text in it. Jacob refused to let go. Now, again, you look at that and say, well, Jacob, he was just so strong, he was going to hold God there, that God gave him what he wanted. Well, you're kind of missing the point of the story if you get there, I think. You get to that daybreak, Jacob he's exhausted. By this time, God has touched his hip. He's wounded. He's overpowered. And he he grips tighter. He holds on for all that he's worth. It's not like it's polished or it's triumphant. He just clings. It's the kind of faith that says, I don't have anywhere else to go. So have you ever been there? Like something's going on in life. Maybe you created it through your own decisions. Maybe it came from outside your decisions and you don't really know why you're facing it or what's going on with it. But you are in a spot where you realize you have nowhere else to turn, and unless God rescues you, there is no way that you're going to get rescued. So if you had those moments where you're hanging on to God with all that you have, and most of you can probably think of specific prayers that you prayed in those times where it's like, God, if you will just, I need you to, could you? And they're not passive, like we got the words memorized kind of prayers, are they? I mean, they are desperate faith prayers. And Jacob is not hanging on to overpower. I think he's just hanging on because he's clinging in weakness. He's seeking mercy. I mean, how would you feel when you've been fighting with this guy all night? And maybe you think you're going to win, I don't know, and all of a sudden he reaches over and he touches your hip, and all of a sudden it's dislocated. You realize that, hey, this guy can defeat me anytime that he wants to defeat me, right? And now what? Where am I going to turn? What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? That's why faith a lot of times it shows up when it's dark and we're alone. So in the moment that you think, and you see this in people, sometimes when the struggle starts, people start to walk away from God, and some people in the struggle hang on more tightly to God, and Jacob is hanging on more tightly. And when Jacob leaves there, he leaves with a reminder for the rest of his life. He walks with a limp. The wound becomes a reminder that he has been transformed by God, that he has encountered God, that he can't depend upon himself any longer. You know, he's had this, he's trusted manipulation and strength and deception. And now after he is wounded in that struggle by the river, he is full of weakness and dependencies, and that really creates one of the paradoxes of the spiritual life. Often the deepest evidence of God's grace isn't the removal of weakness, it's the He begged and begged and begged for God to take the thorn away. You remember that? And what did God say? My grace is sufficient in weakness. And I think that's one of the hardest lessons. We want transformation, and we really do. We desperately desire transformation from God. The struggle is we really want transformation without surrender. We want blessing without brokenness. We want victory without depending on anybody. So that new identity comes with a limp. So Jacob names the place. And the name that he gives it, Peniel, means face of God. Because he knew he had seen God. You know what he expected? He expected to die. I have seen God and I live. Right? What he expected was to die, because that's what would have happened when you came into the presence of a holy God. The God who, you know, he touched him in his hip socket. You know, he could have crushed him, right? He could have killed him, but he didn't. He blessed him. He renamed him, he transformed him, and he limps into this new life. The question for us becomes, what happens when we encounter God? Do we, I'm not talking about like just religion or tradition or not just an inherited faith that you might have. I mean face to face with the holiness of God. Some people encounter God and honestly they just remain unchanged. Some people walk away offended. How could God tell me what to do? Some people walk away hardened. Some people just say, I'll do what I want. Some people walk away worshiping, wondering how a God who is so awesome and great could even see them with such tenderness and compassion and love. Some people walk away transformed. God just makes such an incredible difference in their life when they come face to face with him that they are never the same. Jacob walks away limping, knowing that he has encountered God and wondering what will happen. So what happens with you? Get a new name? Should. Do you get a new perspective in life? I hope. Does that encounter of God change your priorities? Does it change what you depend on in life? Do you go into that encounter like Jacob and full of pride and direction, and then you find out that what you were hanging on to for so long is really not that strong? Kind of the miracle of that is that not that Jacob survived the night. That's not the greatest miracle of the story. The miracle of the story is that Jacob didn't leave the same person who entered that struggle with God. So my question to you is, when you enter that struggle with God, do you remain the same person? And what will happen for you? What will happen for you that moment that you're figuratively at the stream, the little river of Jabbok, whether you want to call it a stream or a river? And you are there at that moment in your life and you encounter God. What will happen? Will you live? If you have a relationship with Jesus, you'll live. It will be one of the greatest struggles of the night that you have ever experienced. But without Jesus, I think the very thing that Jacob feared would happen. That God will take our life. And I don't mean physical life. I mean spiritual life. And you have to ask yourself, what will happen when I see the face of God? If you need to respond in some way this morning, I'm going to ask you to do that while we stand and sing.